To apply for residence in New Zealand through an investment, you should assess yourself under what's called the migrant investment policy, which includes two types of investor categories. The first one is what's called Investor 1. The minimum investment is 10 million New Zealand dollars, or approximately 6.59 million US dollars invested for at least 3 years. Or what's called Investor 2, which is a minimum investment of 3 million New Zealand dollars, or about 1.9 million US dollars invested for at least 4 years. And well, if you're applying for the Investor 1 or 2 resident visa, you must invest your money in an acceptable investment. And you're probably wondering, what's an acceptable investment? Well, if the Immigration Department of New Zealand approves your application for an investor visa, you have 12 months to actually transfer the funds to New Zealand and invest in what's called an acceptable investment. An acceptable investment must include the following. It must be made a commercial return, and it also has to be invested into New Zealand. It also has to be invested in New Zealand dollar currency, and it's got to be invested in legal enterprises or managed funds, and also have the potential to contribute to the New Zealand economy. Not also to be, you can't use it for personal use, for example, your home, car, or any sort of boat. Investments must be in the following categories: either bonds, equities, property, or other type of investments. Bonds can be issued by either New Zealand government or local authorities, issued by New Zealand firms traded on the New Zealand debt securities market, or issued on New Zealand firms with at least a BBB- or equivalent rating from an internationally recognized credit rating agency, for example, Standard & Poor's, or issued by New Zealand registered banks or in finance companies. Now, the equity can be, when I say equity, we're talking about stocks on the New Zealand Stock Exchange. But there are other options too. In essence, you can take equity and invest in New Zealand firms, and these can be public or private, or in New Zealand registered banks, or an eligible New Zealand venture capital fund. And property can be invested either in residential property development or commercial property. And other investments can be philanthropic investment, or angel funds, or network investments. Now, there are types of acceptable investments, and the government of New Zealand accepts 5 types of investments, and they are New Zealand companies owned by overseas companies, also residential property. Another one is commercial property, or philanthropic investment, or growth investments. New Zealand's GDP per capita is about 42,000 US dollars a year, and the health care is actually quite good in New Zealand. And as of February the 1st, 2020, New Zealand citizens had visa-free or visa-free on arrival access to 184 countries and territories, ranking the New Zealand passport 8th in terms of travel freedom. Included on this visa-free travel list is Canada, the USA, Australia, UK, and also the Schengen countries. Most people need to meet 3 presence tests in New Zealand requirements to get citizenship. And they are, number 1 is you have to be living in New Zealand as a resident for at least 5 years. And if you have had more than one type of visa or permit in the last 5 years, you can apply for New Zealand citizenship as long as each visa or permit allowed you to live there actually indefinitely. And also, if you are an Australian citizen or permanent resident, you can also apply for the New Zealand citizenship if you've lived in New Zealand for at least 5 years. And also, number 2 is if you spend enough time in New Zealand for the last 5 years, you need to have been physically present in New Zealand for a certain amount of time during the last 5 years. The 5 years are counted backwards from the day you actually apply for citizenship. You might not meet this requirement if you've been out of New Zealand for longer than 4 months in any 12-month period. This could be one long trip or many small trips. And number 3 is you intend to keep living in New Zealand. You must intend to live in New Zealand once you become a citizen. New Zealand does allow dual citizenship. The top personal tax rate is 33% for income of 70,000 and above for New Zealand. We're talking about New Zealand dollars. The lowest personal tax rate is 10.5% for income up to 14,000 New Zealand dollars. Now, companies and corporations are taxed at a top rate of 28%. The sales tax rate in New Zealand is 15%. Social Security rate for companies is 3%, and Social Security for employees is 8%. All right, I'm going to give you my evaluation of this program, and it is as follows. I like the fact that New Zealand allows for dual citizenship, and it's got one of the best passports in the world. Included on the visa-free travel list is Canada, the USA, Australia, UK, and also the Schengen countries. I also like the fact that English is the main language, and I also like the fact that you can invest on the New Zealand Stock Exchange is one of the investment requirements to get the residency that leads up to citizenship. But the things I don't like is like living in the USA as far as the taxes go. In my opinion, they're quite high, and New Zealand does tax worldwide income. It's very socialistic, and I myself would not pick this country because I hate socialism. Why invest all this money and then go live in a socialistic country and be taxed to death? This doesn't make sense. This is like going and spending your time back in the USA again. I like places that are totally tax-free, like St. Kitts, where there's no income tax at all, and visa-free travel to the Schengen countries. And St. Kitts also allows, it allows not only dual citizenship, but it has no income tax, it has no capital gains tax. It's an English-speaking country. These are big key things that I look at. But anyway, if you want to learn more how to legally get your taxes to zero or how to get a second passport, do three things. Hit the subscribe button at the right of your screen, and you get new videos as they come out automatically. And I'd like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, please put it below, and I'll get back with you as soon as possible. And also go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com. Hit the button at the top of the page where it says Apply with Us, and fill out the questionnaire, and then hit the bottom button that says Send Back to Us, and we'll help you get started. We deal with about 74 different citizenship by investment and residency by investment countries I think you'd be interested in learning about. And thanks for watching. I look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.